You're back with another one. Why are you so high? This time, this time I got top 10, top 10 ways death was censored in anime dubs. I missed the top 10 list. Make sure y'all like and sub. I saw his channel a couple days ago and I was like, ooh, these look like good concepts, but look at the time, 22 minutes. He must be rambling like me. So I'm not pausing. I'm just gonna get into it. If y'all like these videos, come on, like, and then subscribe, alright? Because you're gonna get more videos, it's gonna be good, alright?
Line introduces death, it usually has a meaningful impact. It's motivation for what the hero's fighting for, or shows how cruel the villain is. It can be the only way to stop the most nefarious characters or keep a protagonist on its toes when avoiding a fall to the antagonist's level. It provokes your feelings as the viewer.
Okay,
I cried a lot. I don't like this.
Never fear then, since things are gonna get less morbid, as anime dubs of the 90s and 2000s made it common to lessen the blow of death by using euphemisms or creating alternate fates to explain why a character will no longer be around in the living world. They're just completely alive, hanging out off screen somewhere.
I like that. I like it when there's happiness and everyone lives. That's better.
Come on, would you really want to undo every meaningful death in anime?
Not Kikyo.
This video will be looking at how death got censored in anime dubs, whether it took a heavy visual edit or a simple change in script. A few notes are, I'll just be looking at English dubs for this list. Most of these dubs were aimed at younger audiences, and I'll do my best to prevent every entry from being from a 4Kids dub for variety's sake, since they're kind of infamous for it, but no promises. The final note is this topic was suggested by viewer Bad Anime Dubs for Kids. So let's take a look at the top 10 ways death was censored in anime dubs. Number 10, Sent to the Stars in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. The third season of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX is when 4Kids really felt like they said, screw it, we're getting cancelled. They increased.
This is what we gonna do. This is what we gonna do. We gonna see if this speeds it up, and it's understandable.
The fourth wall breaks that made it feel like
oh fuck no, that was too much. That's too much. We gonna go to 125. Let's see.
In a bridge series, though some of them were kind of funny. They scandalously left Exodia's pentagram on his card by
then we can't read the stuff, so I'm gonna have to be on. So I'm gonna be on it for the pauses to read the screen, alright?
by accident instead of using that spellbinding circle edit.
Ooh, uncensored Exodia.
But the biggest plot point 4Kids dealt with changing was the return of characters dying if they lost a duel.
Ooh.
We all know the way 4Kids censored death in the previous Yu-Gi-Oh! Series' later entry, but here, since characters dissolved into sparkles, fading away forever, they said these characters were sent to the stars. I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean. It sounds like they chose the first thing that came to mind when they saw these characters dissipate into tiny particles.
It still sounds like they died.
4Kids never implies these characters still have consciousness when turned into stardust, so maybe they invented a euphemism for death that takes many more syllables than saying gone, or taken away, or die. This guy just got sent to the stars, where he will happily live on as stardust as he travels through outer space and burns up in the atmosphere on his way up through the galaxy and suffer until the bits are absorbed into a massive star. Doesn't that make you feel better, kids? Number 9, Another Dimension from Dragon Ball Z. When Saban was producing the DBZ dub, pointing out death was avoided as much as possible. However, when a character on screen died in any way, whether it was explosion or something more brutal, the killer would usually say they're sending their victim to the next dimension. Even with the evil characters, we're comforted by the fact that they get brought away to some other land. This may be surprising for a low entry since it has such infamy in the Dragon Ball community, but this censorship did not seem as weird as others on this list since the series itself shows Otherworld. This is the DBZ Afterlife, where any significant character keeps their body and just dons a spiffy new halo. I always just assumed the next dimension referred to a visit to good old King Enma in Otherworld. While this was not the intent of the manga, the next dimension was unintentionally backed up with filler scenes, movies, and GT, where the heroes fight past villains in Otherworld or in a boss rush when they break out of hell. Still, it doesn't change how awkward it sounds when blowing someone up is essentially just teleporting them somewhere else.
Sounds a lot like the Shadow Realm.
Yeah, don't talk about that, we're doing that later.
Oh, whoops, spoiler alert.
Number 8, Hair Dyed Purple in Pokemon. The Squirtle Squad episode of the Pokemon anime was the first we'd see of two notable 4Kids verbal edits, no death and no onigiri. For the death censor, in one scene when the gang is held hostage by the Squirtle Squad, Meowth translated the Squirtle's threat to where if Ash did not return from getting some super potion after a period of time, they would kill Misty. Ash, of course, returns late, envisioning Misty dying in the most G-rated way possible by falling down a dark abyss. We then see the threat was empty. 4Kids censored the threat to Meowth saying they'll dye Misty's hair purple, which wasn't that bad of an edit considering Misty's visual reaction appeared as, "You're gonna murder me? That's dumb."
They're turtles. How are they gonna press the button to spray the hair dye? Or mix the hair dye? Or buy the hair dye?
I'm sure they could extort Team Rocket into getting them some hair dye from that Pokemarts they robbed earlier.
When I go to a Pokemart, I don't see hair dye on the list of items that I could buy. What burn heal? That's not a hair dye.
What makes this verbal edit questionable is the unedited scene where Ash thinks of Misty falling into the abyss. Where did that thought come from if the threat was just purple hair? To quote an internet show I used to watch back in 2008, WTF Pokemon, what is she falling into? A vat of purple hair dye?
You can drown in that.
The funny thing is, 4Kids wasn't even shy about mentioning death earlier in the dub, like the Charmander episode or them adding a mention of death in episode 5 when they said Brock's mother passed away from all the stress after his father left. In actuality, his mom also abandoned the family, but apparently 4Kids did not like the idea of both parents deserting their children, and then when 4Kids had to dub Pokemon Chronicles, they had the plot hole of Brock's mom returning. She came back to convert the rock gym into a water-type gym, but maybe she should have changed it to a ghost-type gym considering she's now a zombie in this canon. Number 7. They were robots the whole time in Space Battleship Yamato. You think these 90s and 2000s anime dub edits are funny? Try the 1970s anime dubs. Space Battleship Yamato, or Star Blazers, had to show many casualties in the space war taking place during the series. In one scene of Episode 6, Season 3, Jason thinks everyone in the room is dead, or incapacitated as the dub tries to imply, but one Galvanian enemy soldier is still alive and tries to sneak attack our protagonist with a knife. Reacting quickly, Jason shoots him with his laser at the last second, killing the alien. Distraught because he killed his first living being as a newbie in combat, Wendy, I think that's her name in the dub, tries to comfort him by saying it was a result of war and it's not his fault that he had to kill. The dub, on the other hand, has Jason just scared by the fact that a robot soldier almost attacked him, followed by Wendy saying, "You're very lucky that's all it was. If he had been real, it would have been much harder for you." This essentially explains what happened in the original version. The episode ends with the soldiers paying tribute to those lost in the war, so the dub had to add a line saying that some of those who perished were not all robots and they had to pay respect. If the dubbers were planning to show that scene the whole time, doesn't that effectively nullify all the effort they put into adding dialogue that implies no characters died because they were robots?
Facts.
Number 6. It's Sunday in Dragon Ball
They should've
Z.
left it
When the
alone.
early English
There's no
dub
reason
of
for them to
Dragon
change
Ball
it.
Z was not using the next dimension to solve all their problems of characters dying, the dubbers had a bunch of lines that explicitly pointed out that unnamed background characters were not dead after Nappa blew something up. If I wanted to cover all of the most bizarre instances of this, it would probably take up most of the list, so I'm picking
so
my
he's putting
favorite
stuff on
one-off
screen long
DBZ
enough for
censorship
for
of
at least
death.
to read it.
After Nappa and Vegeta first land on Earth, they destroy a bunch of buildings when landing with reckless abandon. As soon as Vegeta gets out of his ship, he says, "Too bad it's Sunday, those buildings would have been filled up tomorrow." Since the death toll was implied in the original without any dialogue dedicated to it, dubbed Vegeta made sure we knew that that building was empty. It also shows Vegeta is well studied on the 12-month calendar that may not exist on the Saiyan planet, knows Earth customs that no one works or is in a place of business on Sunday ever, and laments when he destroys something that doesn't result in a body count. With that logic, I like to think the entire Zod fight in Man of Steel where they just destroyed dozens of buildings happened on a Sunday, so Superman was not responsible for the death of any civilians. No one works on Sunday, except the Daily Planet, which is why we saw shots of everyone in that office watching the fight. Number 5. Go to jail in 4Kids One Piece. In one of the most tragic deaths in One Piece, we learn that Nami's adoptive mother Bellemere was killed at gunpoint by the fishmen pirate captain Arlong. The reason being, after he conquered Kokoyashi Village, he forced all the residents to pay him tribute with money. Since Bellemere only had enough to either pay for herself or for her daughters, she fearlessly tells Arlong that the payment covers her children instead of hiding them, in hopes that Nami and Nojiko will be spared. To make an example of her, Arlong kills her in cold blood to show the other residents what happens if you can't pay the fishmen. A very dramatic and emotional scene that of course 4Kids butchers more than they needed to. Maybe they could have found a way to make her death more ambiguous if they wanted to get rid of anything graphic, but instead they have Arlong dramatically point at Bellemere to censor the gun, on, and the pointing hand has the scale of Buster's big
Always
hand from
did the
Arrested
pointing
Development.
hand.
He declares she
Even
has to
Yu-Gi-Oh.
spend the rest of her life in a dungeon for not paying up, and then the plot continues off screen, I guess. Hey everyone, Arlong has been defeated. Let's go rescue everyone who has been thrown in that dungeon since they were not killed. Hey, where are y'all going? Isn't Bellemere locked away?
So either way, she's dead. She either is shot dead or dies from hunger and starvation in a hole.
Whoa, both at the same time?
A little bit.
What a deal. What really seems off about this scene in the 4Kids dub is Arlong looks so sinister to reflect his ruthless nature, but since his voice direction just made him sound like a run-of-the-mill jerk, he's casually talking and saying funny things. Then he takes Nami, which he initially did after killing Bellemere, but since she is still alive in this dub, 4Kids edited together clips of Bellemere from earlier in the episodes to make it look like she was still alive and reacting to Arlong taking Nami. And if Arlong and company left with Nami as Bellemere screams for him not to take her away, who took Bellemere away to put her in the dungeon? Number 4, the Shadow Realm in Yu-Gi-Oh! Quite the infamous death censorship that plenty have spoken about when covering this type of topic, so here's my take. The Shadow Realm was 4Kids' solve-all-problems method to avoid death in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters anime. It simply took the concept from the first season when Pegasus used his Millennium Eye to take the souls of Yugi's grandpa and the Kaibas, leaving their bodies as emotionless shells. This was the first use of the Shadow Realm, which was somewhat accurate to the original, where the minds of the victims go when their bodies are safely in our world. After this, the dub went kind of crazy, implying anyone with a Millennium item could send the loser of a duel to the Shadow Realm. But really, Merrick murders people, like a lot of people.
Can you return from the shadow? Wait, people return from the Shadow Realm, right?
That's because Yu-Gi-Oh! Goes by anime logic of reviving dead characters, because who cares if death has consequences? For example, 4Kids hardly changed anything visually when Yami Merrick beat Bakura in a duel and killed him with good Merrick. They originally just faded away physically and mentally in a shadowy mist for a seamless Shadow Realm cover-up. Bakura had a bunch of demons drag Bones and crew to hell in an earlier duel, which is kind of like the Shadow Realm. There were many smooth censorship transitions. But then you had the more elaborate death traps that created even more convoluted ways you could be sent to the Shadow Realm in the dub. The duel with Pandora, or Arcana in the dub, had the edit where as the player loses life points, a dark energy will move closer to their legs and send them to the Shadow Realm when it touches them. I feel like you don't need such a big object to gently touch a portion of your ankle. Now if it had to go through your ankle, then the size makes sense. So it made sense in the Japanese version when these discs were actually buzzsaws. There was also the tag duel where when the player's life points reached 0, the bomb on top of the multi-story building everyone was dueling on would break the glass, causing them to plummet to their death. In the dub, it was just a long drop into a portal for the Shadow Realm. The bombs were turned into magic shadow boxes that opened said portal. Question. In the dub, would that make the parachute that saved Umbra's life from the fall kind of useless because you'd still get sucked into the portal either way? Is this just a really weak portal that requires you to directly step on it to work? And why is it in a shopping mall? Finally, there were the simpler edits, where the Millennium Rod would just send you to the Shadow Realm, while in reality, Merrick just used the other end of the rod, the more pointy, stabby end. Number 3, captured or kidnapped in various dubs. This terminology was vague enough to keep a motive of vengeance and explains why a character is out of the picture. Starting with more minor characters, Professor Viper's military team in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. Viper just said they were captured in a throwaway line explaining how he met his adoptive son on a mission alone. So did he just leave the rest of his team captured after he got distracted by finding a baby, or maybe they died? Go back one series and we see Alistair's brother was kidnapped in the war going on in his homeland. In the original, that kidnapping tank was actually a tank of friendship, carrying his brother to safety, and was hit by enemy fire, leading to his brother's death. However, the Deke dub of Sailor Moon probably had the biggest censorship using the term captured. In the final battle with Queen Beryl, the DD girls, or Doom and Gloom girls in the dub, were successful in killing the 4 other Sailor Senshi who took on these minions to protect Sailor Moon so she could fight Queen Beryl. While the deaths weren't graphic and were erased by the whole Rebirth plotline, instead of keeping the emotional scenes where the Senshi say their goodbyes and showing them lifeless in the ice spikes, Deke cut out those parts completely, along with some of the fights to the death. To create the illusion that death doesn't exist, they added in lines by the minions saying they're taking the Sailor Senshi to an unspecified part of the Dark Kingdom. This made the main characters seem weaker since the parts of the fight that were cut out were the Senshi actually fighting back. making the confrontation more like, hi, bye. I also think that during the final battle, the Deke dub implied that the Senshi were projecting their totally not dead essence from the abyss of the Dark Kingdom or something like that to help Sailor Moon rather than it being their spirits. So much material was cut from this fight that the two-part season finale was only one episode in the Deke dub. The only thing of worth we got in return was that epic song sung by Sailor Moon's English voice actress. I know it's probably terrible, but I still like it. Number 2, badly injured in various dubs. This was seen in a lot of dub censorship back in the day, with a lot of anime we've discussed so far. In the same episode of Battleship Yamato as the robot, when the Doctor is presented with more casualties of war, the robot says these ones have more scratches when presenting dead soldiers. The Doctor responds, only scratches? Doesn't anyone seriously get hurt around here? In an almost self-aware joke about how it seems like there should be more lethal situations in this dub. Yu-Gi-Oh! GX's dub once again messed with the fate of Viper's special ops crew in a different flashback, where everyone was badly injured when his helicopter crashed. He made sure he breezed through that detail. He didn't call for help or anything, he was just like, oh, they'll get out of there eventually. 4Kids One Piece had a few moments like this, but the one that stuck out was in Zoro's past, where we learned that his best friend and motivation for fighting Kuina died by falling downstairs. 4Kids changed it to where she was horribly injured by some thugs and could never fight again. Oh, so she's alive? Well, that means Zoro can still go see her and she can give him an encouraging speech and wait, where are you going? And probably the biggest perpetrator of this is Saban DBZ, where they had the go-to cover-up of adding groaning or heavy breathing sounds to the corpse of a character that was just killed to make it seem like they were just hurt really badly and would get up eventually. We also see an injured cover-up with the first kill of DBZ, when the famed farmer with shotgun gets his bullet thrown right back at him by Raditz, with him uttering the line, "That's smarts," as it hits him. Remember folks, in this dub universe, getting hit with a bullet only equates to the impact of a lightly tossed golf ball. Just let him take a nap, he'll sleep it off. As we've gotten to the hider entries, we've had more widespread types of censorship, but for number 1, I want to discuss one of the funniest anime dub edits in terms of how the original story was changed. Before 4Kids, before Deke, but after Star Blazers, we had World Event Productions. They dubbed Beast King Lion, better known as Voltron, Defender of the Universe in the West. They helped create number 1, You Are Your Own Brother in Voltron. In episode 6 of Go Lion, the evil witch Honerva captures team member Kurogane. Shirogane rescues him and confronts the witch in battle. His heroism unfortunately could not save himself, as a blue fiend hits him with a fatal blow. His friends somberly tell him to make it through it, but he knows his time has come and tells them to get back to the castle and defeat the witch. He also shows off his underrated talent of saying most of this with his mouth closed. The crew then gives him a proper burial and says their final goodbyes. To think, it was all that cat's fault for distracting him in battle when the enemy was behind him.
Now I really don't want to get a cat, ever.
The dub starts off with the badly injured cover-up, where Sven, as he's known in the dub, says he can't help them anymore, to which his teammate responds that there's a doctor on a nearby planet. He sounds so sure about the doctor being the answer in the dub, yet his face still has that look of horrible sadness. Don't worry, your friend's okay in this continuity, he's just going to the hospital.
But you can't take a dead man to the hospital if he's already dead, it won't do anything.
Now other dubs might just end it there, since there's no footage to use after a character dies if we don't go the Belmere route. They even cut out the scene of his funeral in the dub. But in Go Lion, we meet Shirogane's twin brother Ryo, who rescues a princess that seems to recognize him. He tells her that she might recognize him because his twin brother is a pilot for the famous Go Lion team. However, she reveals to him that she heard his brother died, causing Ryo to break down and remember seeing the spirit of his brother in a dream. In the dub, this guy was Sven. Sven never died. He was his brother. He just sought refuge on another planet somewhere and tried to abandon his past life because of his failure on the team. The crying over his brother's death was just Sven sad about his past in the dub. The dream where his brother comes back was just Sven's past self talking to himself. Dialogue where Ryo says he now fights for his deceased brother turns into more bickering that Sven will never call the Voltron Force for help, followed by him calling the Force and making up with them. That refusal was short-lived. The original had this scene as Ryo telling the Force that he was the brother of their dearly departed ally. The original episode was about Ryo slowly taking his brother's place as a hero, leading the rebellion on this conquered land. In the dub, Sven is the opposite, saying the enemy's unbeatable and that's why he went crazy and ultimately chose to abandon his past life. And that's basically the rest of the episode. Anytime Ryo shows bravery in the original, Sven is reluctant to be the hero in the dub. It was a weird personality change, but I guess that's what happens when you turn a guy's brother into himself. So turning two brothers into one guy to simply cover up a character's death tops this list about the ways death was censored in anime dubs. Now, what did you think of these choices? Are there any other notable...
They could have just kept, honestly, they could have just kept him away, if anything. But yeah, my brother. Oh, I heard he abandoned his post. What, he wouldn't do that or some? I don't know. That's actually no, that's pretty bad. Don't. Yeah. The good thing I'm not in charge of these. I would definitely butcher it. That was pretty cool. He's talking very slow, but we got through it. We got through it. Hey, if y'all enjoyed, make sure y'all like his video, like my video, sub to his channel, sub to my channel too, and yeah, we out. Peace.